in the conference room below through reinforced transparent aluminum. The aliens were really going at it now. The Vorth delegate had his crest fully extended in what could charitably be called aggressive disagreement, while the crystalline Zephyrian representative was literally vibrating at frequencies that made the water glasses on the table dance like they were at a particularly enthusiastic rave. "You know," Alex said to his companion, a slight woman with prematurely gray hair, and the kind of smile that suggested she found the universe's absurdities personally entertaining. "When I signed up for xenobiology research, I thought I'd be studying interesting alien ecosystems, not refereeing interstellar pissing contests about who's more scary." Dr. Emma Valdez adjusted her glasses and pulled up a holographic display showing the current debate statistics. 17 hours, 43 minutes of arguing. Current record holder for most pointless Galactic Council subcommittee meeting is still the great toilet paper orientation debate of 2389, but we're gaining ground. "Remind me again why we're here?" "Because," Emma said with the patience of someone who'd explained this several times already, "humanity is the newest species to be classified in their precious database, and apparently our predatory status is causing some philosophical difficulties." Below them, the Mokari delegate, who looked like what would happen if a praying mantis decided to get really into bodybuilding, was gesticulating wildly with all four arms, while making sounds that the universal translator was helpfully rendering as aggressive chittering with undertones of bureaucratic frustration. "The classification system is perfectly clear," the translator announced in the Mokari's tinny mechanical voice. "Apex predators are categorized by hunting success rate, natural weaponry, and ecosystem dominance. Humans clearly fall into the Category 7 classification. Dangerous but manageable pack hunters." The Vorth delegate's translator crackled to life, overlapping in that delightful cacophony that made diplomatic meetings sound like a broken radio trying to tune into 3 stations at once. "Preposterous. Their technological dependence clearly drops them to Category 4 at best. Without tools, humans are merely persistent scavengers." Alex rubbed his temples. "Category 4? I'm almost insulted. What's Category 4 again?" "Opportunistic omnivores with delusions of grandeur," Emma read from her tablet. "Right above harmless herbivores who think they're tough, but below actually knows how to use those claws properly." Charming. The crystalline Zephyrian's contribution came as a harmonic resonance that sounded like wind chimes having an existential crisis. The translator, clearly struggling, offered, "Sonic communication detected. Attempting translation. Your methodology lacks crystalline clarity. No, wait. Your mothers were questionably structured. Translation error, recalibrating." "I love how universal translators handle insults," Alex observed. "Really adds that extra layer of diplomatic confusion to everything." Emma was scrolling through her notes. "The problem is that humans don't fit neatly into their categories. We're not the strongest, fastest, or most naturally armed, but we're also sitting in a space station that we built, orbiting a planet we're terraforming, while they argue about whether we're scary enough to rate a higher threat classification. The irony is palpable. Oh, it gets better. The Mokari think we're too dependent on technology to be real predators. The Vorth think our pack hunting strategies are outdated because we use vehicles instead of running our prey down on foot. And the Zephyrians." Emma paused as another cascade of harmonic chaos erupted from below. "Well, the Zephyrians think our entire approach to predation is geometrically unsound, whatever that means." Alex watched as a new player entered the debate. A hegemony representative who looked like someone had decided to crossbreed a spider with a filing cabinet and give it a law degree. "Oh good, the lawyers are here." "Technically, the hegemony representative is more of a conflict resolution specialist," Emma corrected. "So, a lawyer." The hegemony delegate's 8 legs carried it to the center of the room with mechanical precision, while its translator began the kind of lengthy, Baroque introduction that suggested this meeting was about to get even more ridiculous. "Esteemed colleagues, we gather to address the taxonomical uncertainty regarding species 847C, colloquially known as humans, in relation to the Standardized Predatory Classification Matrix, Revision 847.3, as amended by Council Resolution 9847B, and subsequent clarifications provided in Addendum 847.3.1 through 847.3.847. "Jesus," Alex muttered. "Do they bill by the word?" "The fundamental question before us," the hegemony delegate continued, "is not merely one of classification, but of definitional precision. What precisely constitutes predation in the context of interspecies behavioral assessment?" Emma leaned back in her chair. "You know what? This might actually get interesting." They're about to discover that humans have a very flexible definition of predation. Below, the delegates were settling in for what promised to be a very long discussion about the philosophical nature of hunting, killing, and eating other things. The Makari delegate started with what seemed like a reasonable enough position. Predation is clearly defined: the pursuit, capture, killing, and consumption of other organisms for sustenance. Humans excel at this through pack coordination and tool use. But do they? The Vorth interjected, his crest now cycling through colors that suggested either deep thought or impending indigestion. Human hunting involves projectile weapons from great distances, vehicular assistance, and often the consumption occurs hours or days after the kill, frequently after extensive chemical and thermal processing that renders the original organism nearly unrecognizable. The Zephyrian's contribution sounded like a xylophone falling down a flight of stairs, which the translator optimistically rendered as, "The temporal disconnection between pursuit and consumption suggests a fundamental deviation from traditional predatory matrices." Alex found himself actually getting interested despite himself. They're not wrong, you know. When was the last time you personally chased down a deer and ate it raw? Tuesday, Emma said without missing a beat. Alex stared at her. I'm kidding, but I did catch a fish last weekend. Does that count? With a rod and reel? Obviously. Then according to their logic, no, it doesn't count. You used tools. You weren't directly competing with the fish in its natural environment, and you probably cooked it afterward. I did cook it, with lemon and herbs. It was delicious. The debate below was getting more heated. The Mokari had produced a holographic display showing various Earth predators in action. Lions taking down zebras, wolves hunting elk, sharks attacking seals. Classic predator-prey interactions, all very nature documentary and dramatic. Observe, the Mokari declared. This is how apex predators behave. Direct confrontation, natural weapons, immediate consumption. The Vorth's response was to produce his own holographic display showing humans in various hunting scenarios. Bow hunting, rifle hunting, fishing, and somewhat inexplicably a farmer collecting eggs from chickens. And observe this. Humans use artificial weapons, attack from concealment or great distance, often target creatures that pose no threat to them whatsoever, and frequently consume organisms that they have not personally killed at all. Wait, Alex said. Did he just use chicken farming as an example of human predation? I think he did. That's actually kind of brilliant in a weird way. We do basically keep large numbers of animals in controlled environments and then kill and eat them on a schedule. That's not predation, that's agriculture. Is it though? Emma's smile was getting wider. From the chicken's perspective, what's the difference? The hegemony delegate was taking detailed notes with several appendages simultaneously, creating what looked like the galaxy's most thorough court transcript. For the record, are we defining predation by the method of acquisition, the relationship between hunter and prey, or the ultimate outcome? This, apparently, was the question that broke the dam. Suddenly, everyone was talking at once, with translators overlapping into a cacophony that sounded like a malfunctioning orchestra trying to perform 3 different symphonies simultaneously. The Mokari position seemed to be that true predation required direct physical confrontation using natural weapons. The Vorth argued that tool use disqualified humans from real predator status. The Zephyrian kept making sounds that the translator was rendering as increasingly abstract geometric concepts. And the hegemony delegate was trying to establish a formal definition that would satisfy everyone, which was like trying to nail jelly to the wall while blindfolded and riding a unicycle. You know what's funny? Alex said, watching the chaos unfold below. They're all missing the point entirely. Oh? Do enlighten me, Dr. Apex Predator. They're thinking about predation in terms of individual hunting behavior. Hunt thing, kill thing, eat thing. Very straightforward, very animal kingdom. And humans aren't really individual predators anymore. We're something else entirely. Emma's smile turned genuinely interested. Go on. Think about it. A lion hunts gazelles. A shark hunts fish. Very simple, very direct. But what do humans hunt? Everything? Exactly. But not just everything, we hunt concepts. We hunt entire ecosystems into submission. We hunt other species not just for food, but for materials, for entertainment, for scientific curiosity, for the sheer hell of it. We've turned predation into an industrial process. Below them, the debate was reaching new heights of academic absurdity. The hegemony delegate had produced a flowchart that covered most of one wall, with decision trees that would make a computer scientist weep with joy or terror. Furthermore, the delegate was saying, we must consider whether domestication represents a form of predation. whether agricultural practices constitute systematic predation, and whether the human practice of fishing for sport represents predation, recreation, or some hybrid category requiring additional subcategorization. The Mokari delegate's crest was now flashing in what looked like a strobe light pattern.
This is becoming ridiculous! Predation is a biological imperative.
These complications are merely technological obfuscations of basic natural behavior. Are they, though? The Vorth replied, and for the first time he sounded genuinely curious rather than just argumentative. Consider, humans have been observed to keep other species as pets, non-food organisms maintained in captivity for social purposes. Is this a form of predation? They control the animal's entire existence, determine its diet, reproductive opportunities, living conditions. Oh shit, Alex said quietly. He's actually getting somewhere. Emma was leaning forward now, genuinely engaged. You're right. From an alien perspective, pet ownership is incredibly weird. We capture members of other species, force them to live with us, control every aspect of their existence, and claim it's because we love them. And we've been doing it for thousands of years. Dogs, cats, horses, cattle, sheep. We've essentially domesticated half the planet's megafauna. It gets worse, Emma said, pulling up some data on her tablet. Humans have directly or indirectly caused the extinction of hundreds of species just in the last few centuries. Not for food, not for territory, just as collateral damage from our expansion. Now that, Alex said, is apex predator behavior. We don't just hunt individual animals. We hunt entire species into extinction without even trying. The conversation below was taking an unexpected turn. The Zephyrian had just made a sound like a crystal cathedral collapsing in slow motion, and the translator was struggling to keep up. Harmonic suggestion indicates widespread ecosystem modification, species-level population control, systematic environmental restructuring for resource optimization. The room fell silent as everyone tried to process what the translator had just said. Did the rock person just realize that humans terraform planets? Alex asked. I think they just realized that we're not really predators at all, Emma said slowly. We're ecosystem engineers. We don't adapt to environments. We modify environments to suit us. And then we modify the other species in those environments to suit us too. The Mokari delegate was the first to break the silence. His crest had stopped flashing, and was now a solid, rather worried-looking blue. The Zephyrian raises an interesting point. Human predation appears to operate on multiple scales simultaneously. Individual, population, species, ecosystem, and planetary, the Vorth added quietly. They modify entire worlds. The hegemony delegate's stylus stopped moving for the first time in the entire debate. 8 compound eyes focused on the data displays with the intensity of someone who had just realized they might need to completely restructure their filing system. This presents definitional challenges, the delegate said carefully. The current classification matrix does not include categories for macro-environmental predation. Emma stood up and walked to the window. Alex, I think we need to go down there. Why? Because they're about to ask us to explain ourselves, and I think they deserve an honest answer. You want to tell them the truth about humans? Emma's smile was now less amused and more calculating. I want to ask them a question. The conference room was much larger than it had appeared from the observation deck, and the delegates were much more intimidating up close. The Mokari delegate loomed over Alex like a muscular, chitinous tower of barely contained aggression. The Vorth's crest was shifting through colors that probably meant things in his native culture but just looked vaguely ominous to human eyes. The Zephyrian was making soft harmonic sounds that felt like having someone gently rearrange the furniture in his brain. And the hegemony delegate was taking notes with the mechanical precision of someone who was either very thorough or very nervous. Honored representatives, Emma began, and Alex was impressed by how diplomatic she managed to sound, while clearly enjoying herself. We understand you're having some difficulty classifying humanity in your predator database. The issue, the hegemony delegate said carefully, is that your species appears to exhibit predatory behaviors that don't align with our established categories. What colleague hegemony is saying, the Mokari interrupted, his crest now a steadier shade of what Alex hoped was polite interest, is that you don't hunt like normal predators. Define normal, Emma said pleasantly. This apparently was not the response they'd been expecting. The Vorth leaned forward, his coloring shifting to what looked like confused curiosity. Normal predatory behavior involves the pursuit and consumption of prey species for sustenance and territorial control. Right, Emma nodded. And you've observed that humans don't exactly fit that model. Correct. Your species uses tools, modifies environments, practices agriculture, maintains non-food species for unclear purposes, keeps some animals as companions, the Zephyrian added, the harmonics now sounding more like a question than a statement, while systematically consuming others of the same or similar species. Exactly, Emma said, and her smile was getting wider. You've identified the problem perfectly. The silence stretched out for several seconds. Alex could practically hear the gears turning in 4 different types of alien brains. So, the Makari said finally, what are you? Emma looked around the room, meeting each delegate's gaze, or optical sensor cluster in the Zephyrian's case, in turn. Have you considered, she said conversationally, that you might be asking the wrong question? Elaborate, the hegemony delegate said, stylus poised. You're trying to categorize humans as a type of predator. But what if we're not predators at all? What if we're something your classification system doesn't account for? The Vorth's crest went through a rapid cycle of colors that Alex was pretty sure spelled out confusion in whatever spectrum they used for communication. If not predators, then what? Emma walked over to the main display screen and pulled up a holographic image of Earth. What do you see here? Your homeworld, the Makari said, sounding puzzled. Look closer. What do you actually see? The image zoomed in, showing the continents from orbit. Green and brown landmasses, blue oceans, white cloud swirls. Pretty standard terrestrial planet stuff. It looks modified, the Zephyrian said slowly, harmonics sounding surprised. Modified how? The landmass patterns. Geometric agricultural divisions. Artificial structures visible from orbital distance. Concentrated energy emissions. Exactly. Now let me ask you something. In your classification system, what do you call an organism that modifies its environment to support higher population densities of itself? The hegemony delegate stylus stopped moving entirely. That would be ecosystem engineering. And what do you call an organism that controls the populations of other species, determines their breeding, their distribution, their access to resources? Population management, the Makari said quietly. And what do you call an organism that actively modifies the genetics and behavior of other species to suit its own needs? Selective. Breeding? The Vorth offered, his crest now a steady, concerned-looking orange. And what do you call an organism that can survive and reproduce in virtually any environment by modifying that environment to suit its needs? An invasive species? The Zephyrian's harmonics were getting higher, more crystalline. Emma nodded. Now you're getting it. Humans aren't predators. We're something much more interesting. Alex was beginning to see where this was going, and he wasn't sure whether to be impressed or terrified. Emma, what are you doing? I'm explaining to our new friends what humans actually are, she said cheerfully. See, the problem with your classification system is that it's designed around natural ecosystems. Predator-prey relationships, territorial competition, resource scarcity. Very elegant, very balanced. She gestured to the image of Earth, which was now showing detailed satellite imagery of major urban centers, agricultural regions, industrial complexes. But humans stopped participating in natural ecosystems about 10,000 years ago. We didn't just adapt to our environment, we replaced it. Everywhere we go, we create artificial ecosystems designed to support us. The cities, the Makari said, understanding dawning in his tone. The cities, the farms, the domesticated animals, the managed forests, the artificial waterways, the modified atmosphere. Earth isn't a natural ecosystem anymore. It's a machine. A planet-sized machine designed to produce and support humans. The hegemony delegate was scribbling furiously now, all 8 appendages moving in complex patterns. This changes the entire classification framework. It gets better, Emma said, and Alex realized she was enjoying this way too much. Because we don't just do this on one planet. We're doing it here, on this station. We'll do it on every world we settle. We don't colonize planets, we convert them. Into what? The Vorth asked, and Alex noticed his crest had gone a rather pale shade of green. Into more Earth. Every human settlement becomes a little piece of Earth ecosystem, supporting Earth organisms according to Earth ecological patterns. We're not expanding into the galaxy. We're turning the galaxy into Earth, one world at a time. The room was very, very quiet. So, Emma continued conversationally, when you ask whether humans are apex predators, you're missing the point entirely. We're not competing with other predators for resources. We're rewriting the rules of the game. This is... The Zephyrian began, harmonics wavering uncertainly. Terrifying, Alex suggested helpfully. I was going to say unprecedented. The harmonic translation came back. But terrifying works too. Emma pulled up another display, this one showing human population growth over the last few thousand years. The curve was dramatic. Here's the thing about human predation, she said. We don't hunt individual animals. We hunt entire ecosystems. We identify useful species and promote them. We identify inconvenient species and eliminate them. We modify landscapes, atmospheric composition, water distribution, soil chemistry. You're gardeners, the Mokari said suddenly. Planetary-scale gardeners. That's actually not a bad metaphor, Emma agreed. Except most gardeners don't have nuclear weapons. You have nuclear weapons? The Vorth's crest was now cycling through what looked like a panic response. Oh, we have lots of nuclear weapons, Alex said helpfully. Enough to sterilize several planets, actually. But we also use nuclear technology for power generation, medical treatments, space propulsion. The same technology for destruction and creation, the hegemony delegate muttered, still scribbling. Dual-use capabilities across all technological domains? Emma nodded. That's very human, actually. Every tool we create can be used for multiple purposes. Our agricultural technology can feed billions or create biological weapons. Our transportation systems can carry people or deliver explosives. Our information networks can connect everyone or surveil everyone. You're not predators, the Zephyrians said, harmonics now sounding almost awed. You're ecosystem parasites. Hey, Alex protested. That's a bit harsh. No, wait, Emma said thoughtfully. That's actually not entirely wrong. Think about it. We move into an ecosystem, we modify it to support our needs, we extract resources from it, and eventually we change it so much that it becomes something entirely different. But parasites don't usually modify their hosts to this degree, the Mokari pointed out. True. We're more like ecosystem viruses? We insert our DNA into the planetary ecosystem and reprogram it to produce more of us? The hegemony delegate looked up from his notes. I'm going to need a completely new classification category. Emma's smile was now distinctly predatory. Actually, I have a question for all of you. Yes? The Vorth said cautiously. You've been debating how to classify human predatory behavior. But I'm curious, when you're making these classifications, are you counting wild humans or trained ones? The silence that followed was the kind of silence that usually precedes either enlightenment or explosions. What? The Mokari said very carefully. Is the difference? Emma looked around the room, making eye contact with each delegate in turn. Well, wild humans are the ones who developed agriculture, built cities, domesticated animals, created art and music and literature, developed science and technology, and generally created civilization as we know it. And trained humans? Trained humans are the ones who figured out how to leave the planet. She gestured toward the viewport, where the stars were visible beyond the station's hull. The humans you're dealing with now? We're all trained humans. We've been selected for traits like technological aptitude, adaptability to artificial environments, ability to work in mixed species groups, psychological stability under stress. Oh shit, Alex muttered as he realized where this was going. See, wild humans are adapted for terrestrial environments, Earth ecosystems, familiar social structures. But trained humans? Emma's smile was getting genuinely alarming now. We're adapted for space, for artificial environments, for encounters with unknown species, for resource scarcity, for long-term isolation, for problem-solving under extreme conditions. The Vorth's crest had gone completely white. You're saying that humans have domesticated yourselves? Not domesticated. Evolved, deliberately. Wild humans took over one planet, but trained humans? She gestured around the station again. We're taking over the galaxy. The hegemony delegate's stylus fell from his grasp and clattered to the floor. This explains the expansion rate. What expansion rate? The Mokari asked, though his crest coloring suggested he already suspected he didn't want to know the answer. Emma pulled up a galactic map showing human settlements, trade routes, and exploration missions. The distribution pattern was extensive. In the 47 years since first contact, humans have established permanent settlements on 38 worlds, set up trade relationships with 51 species, and sent exploratory missions to over 160 systems. That's impossible, the Vorth said flatly. No species expands that quickly. Wild species don't, Emma agreed. But we're not wild anymore. We're trained, specifically trained for expansion into new environments. She pulled up another display showing human space vessels, cargo ships, research vessels, colony ships, military craft. Every human ship is basically a mobile ecosystem, self-contained, self-sustaining, capable of supporting human life indefinitely. We don't just visit other star systems, we bring Earth with us. And then you convert the local systems to support more Earth-like conditions. the Zephyrian said, harmonics sounding increasingly distressed.
Exactly.
It's not conquest, it's conversion. We turn alien worlds into human worlds, and we turn alien species into human partners, whether they realize it or not. Alex cleared his throat. Emma, I think you're scaring them. Am I? She looked around the room with innocent curiosity. I'm just answering their questions. You wanted to know how to classify humans, right? The Makari delegate's crest was now cycling through rapid color changes that suggested either deep thought or impending cardiac arrest. So, what are you saying? That humans are some kind of galactic infection? Oh no, Emma said cheerfully. Infections are usually harmful to their hosts. We're more like symbiotes. We move in, we set up shop, we make ourselves useful. And eventually the local ecosystem becomes dependent on us. How? The hegemony delegate asked, though Alex noticed he'd started taking notes again. Emma pulled up economic data. Trade volumes, resource flows, technological transfers. Look at this station. It's a joint venture between 12 species, right? Human technology, Vorth engineering, Mokari materials science, Zephyrian energy systems. And? The Vorth prompted. And how much of the station's operational capacity is dedicated to supporting human needs? Life support systems calibrated for human physiology, gravity levels adjusted for human comfort, atmospheric composition optimized for human respiration. The silence was getting uncomfortable. Furthermore, Emma continued, clearly enjoying herself, how many of the other species on this station have modified their own behaviors to accommodate human social patterns? Meeting schedules aligned with human circadian rhythms, food service options that include human-compatible nutrition, recreational facilities designed around human entertainment preferences. We adapted our practices to accommodate a new partner species, the Mokari said slowly. That's normal diplomatic protocol. Is it? Or is it the first step in ecosystem conversion? Alex watched the alien delegates processing this information and decided it was time to intervene before Emma completely traumatized them. What Emma is getting at, he said diplomatically, is that humans might not fit into your existing classification categories because we represent something evolutionary unprecedented. New how? The hegemony delegate asked. We're the first species you've encountered that doesn't just adapt to existing ecosystems. We create new ones. And we create them in such a way that other species can participate, but only on our terms. Emma nodded approvingly. Exactly. We're not predators. We're not parasites. We're not even invasive species in the traditional sense. We're ecosystem architects. We design and build the environments we want to live in, and then we invite everyone else to move in with us. But only if they agree to play by your rules, the Vorth said quietly. Well, yes, but here's the thing. Our rules are usually pretty good. Better food security, better medical care, better technology, better entertainment, better education. Better according to whom? The Zephyrian asked, harmonics sharp. According to the species that choose to participate, Emma said. No one forces anyone to trade with humans, or live on human settlements, or adopt human technologies. But most species find that the benefits outweigh the costs. And the ones that don't? Emma shrugged. They're free to go their own way. We're not expansionist in the sense of territorial conquest. We're expansionist in the sense of opportunity creation. The Mokari delegate was studying the economic data with increasing attention. These trade volumes, the resource flows. You're saying that human settlements become economic centers that other species become dependent on? Not dependent. Integrated. There's a difference. Is there? Emma considered this carefully. Okay, maybe the difference is smaller than I'd like to admit. But the point is, it's voluntary integration. We create systems that are beneficial to participate in, and most species choose to participate. And if they choose not to, then they don't. We're not going to force anyone. But we do make it very attractive to join up. Alex decided to try a different approach. Look, the fundamental question you're trying to answer is whether humans are dangerous, right? Correct, the hegemony delegate said. The answer is yes, we're extremely dangerous. But not in the way your classification system is designed to measure. Elaborate. Traditional predators are dangerous to individuals or small groups. A lion might kill a few dozen prey animals in its lifetime. Even an apex predator like a great white shark only directly impacts a small portion of its ecosystem. Yes? Humans are dangerous to entire civilizations. Not because we attack them, but because we change them. Every species that has significant contact with humans ends up becoming more human-like over time. Emma nodded. Look at this station again. 5 years ago, none of these species had regular joint conferences. None of them had standardized translation protocols. None of them had integrated life support systems designed to accommodate multiple physiologies simultaneously. And now you're all sitting in a room together, speaking a common trade language, using human-designed meeting protocols, debating classification systems based on human organizational principles. The room was very quiet. So, the Vorth said finally, what you're telling us is that humans are dangerous because they're contagious? Emma's smile was radiant. Now you're getting it. Our ideas spread, Alex added. Our technologies get adopted. Our social patterns get imitated. Our economic systems get integrated. And once that happens, there's no going back. Because the benefits are too significant to abandon, the Mokari said, understanding dawning in his tone. Exactly. It's not coercion, it's just optimization. Human systems tend to be very good at producing the things that most species want. Safety, prosperity, entertainment, knowledge, social connection. And once you're integrated into those systems, you become dependent on them. The hegemony delegate finished, and therefore effectively controlled by the species that designed and maintains them. Controlled is a strong word, Emma said. We prefer coordinated. The difference being? Control implies coercion. Coordination implies mutual benefit. Everyone wins. It's just that humans win a little more. The Zephyrian made a sound like a crystal wind chime being gently dissolved in acid. This is genuinely terrifying from a cultural preservation standpoint. Why? Alex asked. We're not eliminating other cultures. We're just adding to them. Are you? Or are you replacing them with hybrid cultures that look like the original but function according to human principles? This gave Emma pause. That's actually a really good question, and I'm not sure I have a satisfying answer. The honest answer, Alex said, is that we probably don't know. Human cultural integration has only been happening for a few decades. It might take centuries to understand the long-term effects, but you're not going to stop doing it while you figure out whether it's harmful, the Vorth observed. No, Emma admitted. We're not. Because from our perspective, it's beneficial to everyone involved, and we're probably not capable of objective assessment anyway, because you're the ones doing it. Right. We can't step outside our own cultural framework to evaluate whether our cultural framework is actually good for everyone else. The hegemony delegate had been unusually quiet during this exchange, but now he looked up from his notes. So what you're saying is that humans represent an existential threat to galactic cultural diversity. But you're either unaware of it or unable to stop it, and it might actually be beneficial in the long term, but you have no way to determine that objectively. That's actually a pretty good summary, Alex admitted. And you want us to classify this in our predator database? Well, Emma said, you asked. The silence stretched out for nearly a minute. Then the Mokari delegate started making a sound that Alex eventually realized was laughter. You know what? The Mokari said, his crest now a warm, amused gold. I think I understand the problem. Oh? We've been trying to classify humans as a type of predator, but you're not predators at all. You're gardeners. We covered that metaphor earlier, the Vorth pointed out. No, I mean it literally. Look at what they do. They find an ecosystem. They modify it to support the organisms they want to cultivate. They eliminate or control the organisms they don't want. They plant new species in arrangements that please them. And they tend the whole system to produce the outcomes they desire. Okay, that's actually not a bad analogy, Emma said. And the thing about gardeners, the Mokari continued, is that they're not dangerous to the plants they're cultivating. They're dangerous to weeds. Are you calling other species weeds? Alex asked. No, I'm saying that humans classify other species as either useful or inconvenient, and they treat them accordingly. That's uncomfortably accurate, Emma admitted. So the real question, the hegemony delegate said, stylus moving again, is not how dangerous humans are, but whether we're useful or inconvenient. The implications of this hung in the air like a particularly ominous cloud. Well, the Vorth said after a moment, when you put it that way, we're useful, Emma said quickly. Definitely useful. Look at all the benefits of human partnership, technological advancement, economic growth, cultural exchange, improved medical care. All of which, the Zephyrian pointed out with harmonics that sounded distinctly dry, serve human interests as much as ours. True, but that doesn't make them less beneficial to you. No, the Mokari agreed, but it does make them strategic. Every benefit you provide also increases our dependence on human systems. Alex found himself in the uncomfortable position of defending his species' galactic expansion strategy. Look, interdependence isn't necessarily a bad thing. It creates stability, reduces conflict, promotes cooperation, and makes it very difficult for anyone to challenge the dominant partner, the hegemony delegate added. We're not trying to dominate anyone, Emma protested. Aren't you? The Vorth asked mildly. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like humans have managed to become the central hub of interspecies cooperation in less than 50 years. That's because we're good at it. Yes, you are. Remarkably good. Almost like you evolved for it. This gave Alex pause. Actually, maybe we did. What do you mean? The Zephyrian asked. Think about human evolutionary history. We're social pack hunters who developed complex communication, cooperative tool use, and the ability to coordinate large group activities. But we're also territorial competitors who regularly fought other groups for resources. Standard pack predator development, the Mokari noted. Right, but then something interesting happened. We got so good at intraspecies competition that we started running out of other human groups to compete with. So we started competing with the environment itself. Emma was nodding. Agriculture, urbanization, industrialization. We turned competition with other humans into cooperation against environmental challenges. And then, we ran out of environmental challenges on Earth, Alex continued. So we started expanding into space. But space is full of other intelligent species, so we had to figure out how to compete and cooperate simultaneously. And the solution, the Vorth said slowly, was to create systems where cooperation with humans is more beneficial than competition against humans. Exactly. We turned interspecies relations into a positive-sum game where everyone benefits, but humans benefit most. The hegemony delegate looked up from his notes. That's actually quite elegant from a strategic standpoint. It's also, the Zephyrian added, exactly what a highly successful invasive species would do. Integrate into the local ecosystem in ways that make removal impossible without damaging the entire system. We prefer the term symbiotic integration, Emma said diplomatically. I'm sure you do. The Mokari delegate had been quiet for a while, his crest cycling through thoughtful patterns. I have another question. Shoot, Alex said. What happens when you run out of galaxy to expand into? The question hit the room like a small philosophical bomb. What do you mean? Emma asked, though Alex suspected she knew exactly what he meant. Human expansion is currently driven by the availability of new systems to explore, new species to interact with, new challenges to solve. But the galaxy is finite. Eventually, you'll have contacted every species, explored every system, solved every major challenge. What happens then? Then we go to other galaxies? Alex suggested weakly. Do you? Or do you turn your attention inward and start optimizing the systems you've already created? The silence was getting uncomfortable again. Because, the Mokari continued, what you've described is a species that's very good at identifying inefficiencies and correcting them. And once you've finished expanding outward, you start wondering why other species aren't more efficient, the Vorth finished. Why they maintain cultural practices that serve no obvious purpose. Why they resist technological improvements. Why they insist on doing things their own way when the human way is clearly superior. We're not cultural imperialists, Emma said, but she didn't sound entirely convinced. Aren't you? The hegemony delegate asked. How many human customs have been adopted by other species in the last 50 years? That's voluntary adoption. Is it? Or is it the result of human customs being more efficient, more convenient, or more socially advantageous within human-designed systems? Alex was starting to feel distinctly uncomfortable. You're making it sound like we're deliberately manipulating other cultures. I don't think you are, the Zephyrian said, harmonics surprisingly gentle. I think you're doing what comes naturally to you. The problem is that what comes naturally to humans is ecosystem engineering on a massive scale. And ecosystem engineering, the Mokari added, involves making everything in the ecosystem serve the engineer's purposes. Emma was quiet for a long moment. So what are you saying? That humans are an existential threat to galactic diversity. We're saying, the Vorth replied, that humans are exactly what they appear to be. Highly successful ecosystem engineers who have expanded beyond their original ecosystem and are now engineering new ones wherever they go. Whether that's a threat or not, the hegemony delegate added, depends on whether you consider cultural homogenization to be inherently harmful, and whether you trust humans to maintain beneficial conditions for other species, the Zephyrian concluded, even when those species are no longer necessary for human success. Alex felt like he'd just been handed a very large, very uncomfortable mirror. That's a sobering way to look at it. It's also, Emma said slowly, probably accurate. So, the Mokari said, back to the original question. How do we classify humans in our predator database? The hegemony delegate consulted his notes, which had grown into what looked like a small book during the course of the conversation. Based on our discussion, I would recommend creating an entirely new classification category, which would be ecosystem engineers with expansionist tendencies and symbiotic integration strategies. That's a mouthful, Alex observed. How about galactic gardeners? Emma suggested. I like that, the Mokari said. It's descriptive without being immediately alarming. Is it accurate? The Vorth asked. Accurate enough, the Zephyrian replied. And it captures the essential characteristic. Humans modify environments to suit their purposes, but they do so in ways that can benefit other species. As long as those other species are willing to be gardened, the hegemony delegate added. And as long as humans consider them worth keeping around, Alex said quietly. This sobered the mood again. You know, Emma said thoughtfully, maybe the real question isn't how to classify humans. Maybe it's how to make sure that human ecosystem engineering continues to be beneficial for everyone involved. And how do you propose to do that? The Vorth asked. Checks and balances, oversight, accountability mechanisms, ways to ensure that human expansion doesn't turn into human domination. Such as? Emma looked around the room. Such as interspecies councils that monitor cultural impacts, trade agreements that protect local customs, research collaborations that preserve traditional knowledge, legal frameworks that guarantee species autonomy. All of which, the Mokari pointed out, would need to be designed and implemented by humans. Not exclusively, joint development, shared governance, distributed authority, but ultimately dependent on human cooperation, the Zephyrian noted. If humans decided that such oversight was inconvenient, then we'd be back to the gardener problem, Alex finished. Humans deciding which species are useful and which are weeds. So the fundamental issue, the hegemony delegate said, is not classification, but trust. How so? The question isn't whether humans are dangerous, you clearly are. The question is whether we can trust you to remain benevolent gardeners rather than becoming less considerate landscapers. Emma laughed, though it sounded a bit strained. Less considerate landscapers? Species that clear-cut ecosystems to make room for monocultures. Ah, yeah, that would be bad. So, the Vorth said, how do we prevent that? By making sure it's not in our interests, Alex said. Human ecosystem engineering works because it creates diverse, stable, productive systems. Monocultures are fragile and boring. Are they? Or are they just more efficient? They're more efficient in the short term, but less resilient in the long term. And humans think in long terms. Do you? The Mokari asked. Because some of your expansion strategies look remarkably short-term focused. Such as? Rapid settlement of new worlds without extensive environmental impact studies. Aggressive technology transfer without cultural adaptation periods. Economic integration that creates immediate dependencies. Alex winced. Those might be valid concerns. They are valid concerns, Emma agreed. And maybe that's what we need to work on. Building longer-term thinking into human expansion strategies. And how do you propose to do that? Same way humans solve any complex coordination problem. Bureaucracy. The silence that followed this statement was profound. Bureaucracy? The hegemony delegate asked, sounding almost awed. Human-style bureaucracy. Committees, oversight panels, environmental impact assessments, cultural preservation requirements, interspecies consultation processes, mandatory waiting periods, appeals procedures. You want to bureaucratize human expansion? I want to slow it down enough for everyone to think about what they're doing before they do it. The Mokari's crest had gone a very interested shade of blue. That's actually not a terrible idea. It's also very human, the Vorth observed. Creating complex institutional structures to manage complex social problems. Which brings us back to the original issue, the Zephyrian pointed out. Even the solutions to the human problem are human solutions. True, Emma acknowledged, but what's the alternative? Non-human solutions to human problems aren't likely to work, because non-humans don't understand human psychology well enough to design effective constraints. And humans designing constraints on themselves is like asking gardeners to design protections for weeds, Alex finished. Yeah, I see the problem. So maybe, the hegemony delegate suggested, the solution is joint design. Humans providing insight into human psychology and motivations. Other species providing perspective on the impacts of human behavior. Collaborative constraint development, Emma mused. I like it. It's also, the Mokari noted, exactly the kind of institutional solution that humans excel at creating. Which means we'd probably end up with human-style institutions designed to manage human behavior according to principles that humans find acceptable. As long as those principles also protect non-human interests, the Vorth said, that might be workable. The key word being might, the Zephyrian added. Alex looked around the room at the 4 alien delegates, all of whom were looking distinctly thoughtful rather than terrified, which he took as a positive sign. So, he said, what's the verdict? Are we too dangerous to be allowed in the galaxy? You're too dangerous to be allowed to run around unsupervised, the Mokari replied. But you're also too useful to exclude entirely. And too well established to remove at this point, the Vorth added. Even if we wanted to. Which we don't, the hegemony delegate said firmly. The benefits of human partnership are substantial and well documented. But the risks are also substantial, the Zephyrian concluded, and not well understood. Emma nodded. So what do you propose? The hegemony delegate consulted his notes one more time. I propose that we create a new classification category for humans. Symbiotic ecosystem engineers with expansionist tendencies. Threat level. Beneficial but requires monitoring. And I propose, the Mokari added, that we establish an ongoing interspecies working group to develop oversight mechanisms for human expansion activities. With mandatory cultural impact assessments, the Vorth suggested, and regular review of human-dominated systems to ensure continued benefits for all participants, the Zephyrian added. Alex looked at Emma. What do you think? I think, she said slowly, that it's probably the best outcome we could have hoped for. Better than being classified as cosmic weeds? Much better. And honestly, having some oversight might not be a bad thing. We're not exactly objective about our own impact. Plus, Alex added, bureaucratic oversight is something humans understand. We can work with that. Of course you can, the Mokari said, amusement clear in his tone. You invented it. We perfected it, Emma corrected. But we're happy to share. I'm sure you are, the Vorth said dryly. The hegemony delegate was already drafting what looked like a formal resolution. I'll need to submit this to the full council for approval, but I think we have the framework for a workable solution. How long will that take? Alex asked. With human-style bureaucracy? Several months, probably. And with traditional Galactic Council procedures? Several years. Bureaucracy it is, Emma said cheerfully, as the delegates began to file out, discussing implementation details and committee structures. The Mokari paused by Alex and Emma. You know, he said, his crest shifting to what looked like a thoughtful orange. There's one more question I'm curious about. What's that? You said that trained humans are adapted for space, for expansion, for dealing with alien species. But what happens when you encounter a species that doesn't want to be gardened? Emma's smile became genuinely predatory again. Then we find out whether we're really symbiotic ecosystem engineers, or whether we're just apex predators with good PR. The Mokari's crest went pale. And which do you think you are? Honestly? Alex said. We probably won't know until it happens. But you're hoping for symbiotic? We're hoping, Emma said, that it never comes to that. Because if it does, it means we've failed at the thing we're actually best at. Which is making cooperation more attractive than competition. The Mokari considered this for a moment, then made the sound that Alex had learned was laughter. You know what? I think you're going to be fine. Why? Because you're the first species I've ever met that's actively worried about being too successful. With that, he left, his crest shifting to what Alex hoped was an amused gold. Emma and Alex stood alone in the conference room, looking out at the stars through the viewport. So, Alex said, we're officially galactic gardeners now. Symbiotic ecosystem engineers with expansionist tendencies, Emma corrected. Let's be precise. Right. And we need oversight to make sure we don't accidentally turn into cosmic landscapers, or deliberately turn into apex predators. Do you think we will? Turn into predators, I mean? Emma was quiet for a long moment. I think, she said finally, that we'll be whatever we need to be to survive and thrive. That's what humans do. And if that means becoming predators, then we'll become very good predators. But hopefully, it won't come to that. Because cooperation is more efficient than conquest? Because, Emma said, gardening is more fun than hunting. More creative, more complex, more satisfying in the long term. Alex looked out at the stars, thinking about planets being terraformed, species being integrated, ecosystems being engineered on a galactic scale. You know what's funny? He said. What? They spent all that time trying to figure out how to classify us as predators, and it turns out we're something completely different. Are we, though? Emma asked. Think about it. We hunt entire ecosystems. We stalk them, study them, plan our approach, and then we move in for the kill. The kill being integration, conversion, making them into something that serves our purposes. Alex considered this. So we are predators. We're just hunting on a completely different scale than anyone expected. Exactly. We don't hunt individuals, we hunt civilizations. We don't eat our prey, we absorb it. Alex paused. That's actually kind of terrifying. But also kind of amazing, Emma said. I mean, how many species can say they've successfully hunted an entire galaxy? We haven't hunted the entire galaxy yet. Yet, Emma agreed, her smile bright and predatory and entirely human. But give us time. Outside the viewport, the stars waited, unaware that they were being hunted by a species that had learned to make prey out of the very concept of civilization itself. And in conference rooms and committees and oversight panels throughout the galaxy, bureaucrats and diplomats and cultural preservation specialists would spend the next several decades trying to figure out how to manage a species that had turned ecosystem engineering into an art form. They would probably succeed, mostly. After all, humans were very good at creating systems that benefited everyone involved, even when everyone included the people designing the systems. Especially then. Epilogue. 6 months later. The Interspecies Cultural Preservation and Human Expansion Oversight Committee held its first official meeting on a Thursday, which was a compromise between the human preference for beginning things on Mondays and the Mokari preference for beginning things on days with prime-numbered positions in their weekly cycle. The committee had 17 members representing 12 species, which was a compromise between the human preference for odd numbers, better for breaking ties, and the Zephyrian preference for harmonic mathematical relationships. The meeting lasted 4 hours and 37 minutes, which was a compromise between the human tendency to schedule meetings in 1-hour blocks and the Vorth tendency to let discussions continue until natural stopping points were reached. They accomplished absolutely nothing substantive, which was exactly what everyone had expected from a committee designed by 12 different species, with 12 different approaches to bureaucracy. Dr. Emma Valdez, now serving as the human representative on the committee, filed her report with the characteristic efficiency that had made humans so effective at galactic expansion. Meeting held successfully. No major disasters. Cultural preservation protocols under development. Next meeting scheduled for next Thursday. Recommend continued monitoring of human expansion activities pending completion of oversight framework. Dr. Alex Reeves, now serving as the human technical advisor to the committee, filed a supplementary report. Committee functioning as designed. Bureaucratic inefficiency successfully limiting human expansion rate without preventing beneficial cooperation. System working as intended. The Mokari representative's report was somewhat more direct. Humans successfully bureaucratized. Crisis averted. The Vorth representative noted, human expansion rate decreased by approximately 23% since oversight implementation. Cultural impact assessments proving effective at slowing settlement activities. The Zephyrian representative contributed a harmonic assessment that the Universal Translator rendered as mathematical harmony between preservation and progress approaching optimal parameters. And the hegemony representative, with characteristic thoroughness, submitted a 47-page analysis concluding that the committee was successfully serving its primary function, making sure that humans remained beneficial gardeners rather than becoming problematic landscapers. Meanwhile, in research stations and colony ships and exploration vessels throughout the galaxy, humans continued doing what they did best, creating systems that benefited everyone involved, building relationships that made cooperation more attractive than competition, and gradually, carefully, sustainably turning the galaxy into a place where everyone could thrive. Under supervision, of course, which was exactly how they'd planned it. After all, humans were very good at being supervised by bureaucracies they'd helped design. It was just another form of ecosystem engineering. And ecosystem engineering, as everyone now understood, was what humans were best at, whether they were counting trained ones or wild ones. The committee would continue to meet every Thursday for the next several years, accomplishing very little in each individual session, but somehow managing to create a framework that kept human expansion beneficial for everyone involved. The humans would continue to expand, but more thoughtfully. The other species would continue to benefit from human technology and organization, but with better protection for their cultural autonomy. And occasionally, late at night in the committee's archives, someone would find the original transcript of that first debate about predator classifications, and wonder how anyone had ever thought humans were just another type of predator. They weren't predators at all. They were gardeners. Very, very successful gardeners who happened to think that the entire galaxy would look much better with a few more earth flowers planted throughout it, and who had somehow convinced everyone else to help them do the planting. The end.